The Liberals, united or disgruntled? This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
The answers you need
from the people in the know.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
Liberals united? That is the brave face many Liberal MPs are putting on after a highly anticipated meeting of Liberal MPs, some unhappy with the leadership of the Liberal Party under Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. After a 3-hour meeting, Liberal MPs emerged with many expressing confidence in the Prime Minister and grateful for the opportunity to air some grievances. Among those willing to speak with news reporters yesterday, parked outside the meeting room on Parliament Hill, was Nate Erskine-Smith. He's an outspoken Toronto area MP.
I think I said this to the Prime Minister directly in a recorded interview. I think there's obviously a path forward where we take the fight. Last year, the Conservatives spent $9 million on ads. We spent $300,000. Good luck to us fighting that fight. So I think there's absolutely a path forward where the Prime Minister can turn things around. I think if ultimately we throw everything at the wall and he's getting tuned out, that's a different story. I don't think we're there yet, and I think it was a constructive conversation today. But we gotta stop the palace intrigue, and we gotta focus on what's most important. Consider this as an example, okay? So this old age security debate, the Bloc is like, oh, let's increase it by $3 billion. You know that already OAS accounts for one of every $7 that the federal government spends. You also know that a seniors couple, $90,000 each that they earn, $180,000 overall. You know how much they get? $17,000 in taxable benefits. And we want to give them more money? We're not even having that debate. I know!
Many Liberal MPs seemed frustrated by the infighting happening in their party, arguing it's a gift to the Conservatives and Pierre Poilievre, saying that Poilievre should be the Liberals' real target. Here again, Nate Erskine-Smith.
At the end of the day, this is not just a referendum on Justin Trudeau. I know that's how the Conservatives want to cast it. That's an interesting thing to write. This is ultimately going to be a choice between Conservatives and Liberals in the election. It's going to be a choice between Pierre Poilievre and probably Justin Trudeau, but the Liberal leader. And that's going to be a very important choice for Canadians to make in terms of the direction of the country. And that's the conversation that we should be having.
Liberal MP Charles Sousa, who used to be the finance minister under a previous Liberal government in Ontario, described the meeting as a healthy conversation and seemed to suggest that Liberal fortunes will improve because the lives of Canadians are improving.
We as a party recognize that the real threat here is Pierre Poilievre, and that's what we're fighting for. That's why I came back.
In your opinion, should Trudeau stay on as leader?
Trudeau has made very clear that he feels he's the right choice, and but he appreciates all of what is being said because he's reflecting on what is being done across Canada. So I respect his decision, whatever that may be.
What do you mean, what is being done?
Does that
reflecting
mean
on what is being done across Canada? Or what do you mean?
Listen, we have recognized that times are improving. People had a rough road. And, economic recovery is there. Social policies are put in place. A lot is threatened if Pierre Poilievre comes into play. And I think people need to understand that. We haven't done a good job of reflecting on what the alternatives can be.
In a meeting that was supposed to be about Justin Trudeau's future, the name on everyone's lips seemed to be Pierre Poilievre and what the Liberals see as the threat of Poilievre or the dangers of electing a Conservative government. For example, this is Yvonne Baker, another Liberal MP.
I think what my constituents want to see is a government that's addressing the issues that are important to them. And I think most of my constituents want to make sure Pierre Poilievre never becomes Prime Minister because of how dangerous he is to the people in my community in Etobicoke Centre and to Canada. And that's the priority.
And this is Sophie Chattel, a Liberal MP from Western Quebec.
The Liberal Party and the Liberal caucus has always been a place where people can express their feelings, have the conversations, and sometimes tough conversations. But one thing that we're united on, everybody, is beating Poilievre. And we have to do a better job to do that contrast and be ready for campaign.
Industry Minister François-Philippe Champagne also said the Liberal team is united and it's focused on winning the next election.
It was a great discussion, the type of discussion I think Canadians would be proud to see because when you have a caucus, you need to hear all voices. But what really matters at the end is that we come out of that caucus meeting united, resolve in delivering for Canadians, and resolve in winning the next election.
As it stands right now, the polls don't give the Liberals much of a chance of winning the next election. They trail the Conservatives by double digits, as much as 20 points, according to just about every opinion poll. And Pierre Poilievre has been using question period this week to remind Mr. Trudeau about the troubles in his own party. According to reports, the number of Rebel MPs was 24 out of a caucus of 153 Liberal MPs. They want Mr. Trudeau to make a decision about his future by October 28th. That is Monday of next week, but there's no indication of what these Rebel Liberal MPs would do if Mr. Trudeau fails to meet that deadline. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. Still ahead, lots of analysis about this and the rest of the day's news out of political Ottawa. Michael Taube is coming up. Speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. We'll talk about the Liberal Palace intrigue, as well as Ontario Premier Doug Ford's war on the bike lanes. Michael had a column in the National Post about that this week. And coming up right after the news at the bottom of the hour, it is our Newsday panel. We will talk about everything that's happening within the Liberal Party with our panelists, as well as foreign interference and today's big announcement with the Liberals reversing course on immigration targets. It's all just
Now
ahead.
you know, with
Here on
Rob
News
Snow.
Radio.
Returns on News Radio.
We're back with syndicated columnist, speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper, Michael Taube. Michael had a column on Monday in the National Post about Doug Ford and the war on the car. Has it gone too far? Premier Ford seems to think so, and he's going after bike lanes. What's at work here, Michael?
Well, I think he is actually being very realistic and rational about it, mainly because if you come into major cities like Toronto, where I live, or other ones, you'll see that there are an immense amount of bike lanes, certainly in the province of Ontario, that have slowed up traffic or tied it up very badly. Now, admittingly, there are obviously various things that Doug Ford is looking at, including, certain things with highways as well, and trying to increase speeds amongst provincial highways, most of the 400 series, from 100 to 110, wherever it is safe to start getting traffic moving again. The removal of bike lanes, or at least, if nothing else, if not the removal of current ones, the fact that there will have to be some sort of dealings with municipalities to determine where it is best suited and that it does not obviously hurt traffic flow overall is very realistic and very rational. As I said in my column, whether people like it or not, there's nothing obviously wrong with bike riding. I'm not objecting to that. Most people are not. It's good for exercise. It's good for transportation. That's fine. It is not supposed to be there to slow down traffic and make it more difficult to turn on various corners, including busy intersections, when you look at all of that. Overall, my point being is that cars and trucks and various other, large vehicles are the most important thing in terms of movement, viability, and financially, whereas bikes will never be quite that. For that reason, you have to target it. With bigger cities like a Toronto or a London or obviously in Ottawa and various other locations, you need to have the flow of traffic moving as quickly as possible. Ergo, there are too many bike lanes. We are not obviously suited for it. We are not going to reconstruct every bloody Ontario road to ensure that there's enough room for them. There has to be a balance, and the emphasis cannot be on bikes. It has to be on cars and trucks, which are important for our province in many different ways.
Okay, here's what some of his critics are saying. It's a diversion. It's a distraction. And what is the premier of a big province like Ontario doing, getting involved in, bike lanes and city planning around transportation? Why isn't he trying to fix the healthcare system or the education system? That's your job, Premier Ford. And why do you keep trying to settle these Toronto municipal scores? What do you think of that?
Well, it's basically, unfortunately, his critics always just think he's only focused on one thing and everything else is ignored. But then again, critics of every premier, whether they be on the political left, political right, or center, are going to also criticize them for only focusing on things that are of no importance to them or that they feel are unimportant. Of course, Doug Ford is obviously interested in healthcare and is focusing on it. We just saw the appointment of Jane Philpott, a former Liberal MP and cabinet minister, Minister of Health, under Justin Trudeau, who will hopefully alleviate some of the issues that we are having with healthcare. Not unique to Ontario. Many other Canadian provinces face it as well, but certainly it's happening here. But certainly Ford is looking at it because you said right off the top before we went to break, Doug Ford is a former city councillor in Toronto. His late brother, Rob Ford, was the mayor of Toronto for one term and a longtime city councillor himself. They are interested in these issues. Plus, whether you like it or not, it is a provincial issue because even if you're just focusing on a Toronto or a London or a Guelph or a Kitchener-Waterloo or an Ottawa or wherever else you'd like in Ontario, all those things are important, both in terms of cars and trucks being able to move readily for work, for travel, for pleasure, what have you, and also for transportation of goods, which, by the way, we need to live on a day-to-day basis. We need to have things coming in on time, not late, because we're worried about bike riders, Rob. I don't think this is irrational. And the fact that people are saying we must worry about the bikers or there's a diversionary tactic, what else do you expect them to say? They're always going to say that. He's looking at all different sorts of issues. Right now, that's an important issue. But it's not just a municipal issue. It's also a provincial one. So, no, it's not a diversion in that fashion.
All right. Hey, great to connect again. Thank you so much for today, Michael. We'll speak soon.
My pleasure. Take care.
Yeah.
See you next week.
Bye-bye. Michael Taube, syndicated columnist, speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper, with us every week here on Now You Know. Our Newsday panel is coming up. My goodness, there's a lot to talk about today. It's a very busy news day. We'll get you right up to date here on News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio. The Newsday panel.
And the gang's all here. Cam Holmstrom, Principal, Nipaway Strategies. Hello.
Hello, Robert.
How are you?
Very good. Very
good. Glad to hear it. Gary Keller, Vice President of Strategy Corps. How are you?
Good afternoon, Rob. Great to be with you guys.
So we have Northern Ontario and Alberta represented today on our Newsday panel. It is a great day. All right. Palace Intrigue. Gentlemen, Palace Intrigue. Cam, what's your reaction to, well, first of all, what are we calling this again? Is it a revolt? Is it a mutiny? Is it a coup? Is it a polite request? Mr. Trudeau, will you please leave, go away? Your reaction to how things played out yesterday, Cam? Why don't you start? Go ahead.
I'm not shocked how it turned out. At this point, it is more of a polite request because despite the letters and all that, those who are saying he needs to go haven't taken a firm step to actually force his hand. And I think here's the thing. There's very little that these people can actually do to force his hand. That's the cold, hard facts of it. You saw Mr. Trudeau in his press conference today on immigration reform talking about saying, I'm not going anywhere. Well, yeah, because guess what? There's no one who actually forced him to go anywhere. The only thing you can do to make him reconsider is to cause some political pain, which at this point would be what? Crossing the floor, go to citizen independent, voting non-confidence in your own government. Like, that's where he is pushing these people to. Basically, he's calling their bluff now. He's basically saying, put up or shut up. Unfortunately, I think for most Canadians, the Liberal backbench has been more shut up than put up for a long, long time. But you know what? We'll see when push comes to shove, because you know what? Today, if I'm not mistaken, the 24th, he was given to the 28th to come back as a firm answer.
Yep.
To come back as firm as he did now, like, that's just not a slap in the face. That's a couple slaps and a kick to where all at the same time. So, you know what? People can only be pushed so far. So we'll see how they react to that.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of just shooed them away like an annoying mosquito or something. Gary, what do you think, Gary, about how things are playing out here?
Worst coup ever. It is the most slowest, most sluggish political coup in Canadian parliamentary history that I've ever witnessed. The flip side to that is, in previous political coups in Canada, where somebody said, you've got to go, leader, a lot more damage has been done by a lot fewer people. And so we can't ignore the fact that 20% or more of Mr. Trudeau's caucus is essentially telling him, hit the bricks. That is not an unsubstantial number of people. And as Cam was saying, the options that the coup plotters have to them, if the Prime Minister continues to brush them off, you call us nobodies now? Well, what if all of us go sit as independents and you can't get your supply bill passed? It's a confidence vote. Now, that's an extreme view, but all I'm saying is people are nobodies until they're not anymore, and if they want to take that track, they have the opportunity to. Look, the problem is for the Prime Minister, nothing has been solved. They haven't solved any of these issues. They've been fobbed off time and time again. It feels like they've been fobbed off one more time. And the question he'll have to answer, Prime Minister, if 20% or more of your caucus don't support you, why should Canadians? And he has no good answer for that.
Yes.
His answer is, it's between me and chaos, the old king and chaos line that Mackenzie King, trotted out 100 years ago. King or chaos? It's Trudeau or chaos. Trudeau or Poilievre. You get. I'm. Everything revolves around me.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a good enough reason for Canadians. People are saying, no, we've tuned you out, and that's what the rebels in the caucus are telling him, and he's just basically tuned them out. So they've solved nothing. This is going to continue to fester. It's going to continue to boil on and boil over. And the result is the business of government, the business of Canada, the business of the Commons is just not getting done. It's all tied up with this internal palace intrigue and the Kremlinology that goes with it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I hate to talk in Star Wars terms, but I know Mr. Trudeau's a big fan of Star Wars. If these are like the rebels, I think very clearly coming out of that meeting yesterday, the Imperial Guard got its marching orders. This is our talking point. We have to stick with Mr. Trudeau, and we have to stick with our game plan because Mr. Poilievre is the danger. He's the real danger. He's the real enemy. And if it's not Mr. Trudeau and us, you're not going to like the alternative, and that's Mr. Poilievre. Don't you think that was a coordinated message campaign coming out of that meeting yesterday, Cam?
Oh, absolutely. But
yep.
Here's the problem that Mr. Trudeau is running into. He's not the only option. He's not. And we saw this play out in 2011. Remember when Michael Ignatieff got up and was trying to pitch the same kind of stuff? And what happened? They went right past him and went to Jack Layton, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's the thing that these members of this caucus are saying. It's like, look, you're not. You may think that you're fantastic, but people have tuned you out. People have had enough. And that's the one constant denominator in everything that's going wrong with him right now. It's him. And here's the kicker. I know some people made the comparison to what's happened stateside with Mr. Biden and comparing to Mr. Trudeau. And in that case, Mr. Biden's correctly pointing out, Trump is an absolute danger and a threat. And guess what? If he wasn't up to the job, you had to put the best person in place to actually deal with the threat, right? But in that case, the fact is, there were people who were bigger and stronger than he was, or at least strong enough within their party to push him and say, you need to go, right? We will take you down if you do not go. The problem for the Liberals is there's no such power, there is no such counterbalance left in the Liberal Party.
Right. There's no Obama. There's no Pelosi in the Liberals.
Well,
right.
Mr. Trudeau is Obama in this case.
I guess so.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's the problem, is that there's nobody who can force him. So you are left with more extreme measures of what you got to do. And I think he is seriously underestimating at this point that these people are going to sit back and just let the ship go down without a fight. And Gary pointed out, that's going to lead to some more extreme measures. And honestly, the only thing those backbenchers could do, because they cannot force them out, is either vote with their feet and leave, or vote with their feet.
Well, Gary, what are the chances of that the rebels escalate their measures?
Well, it's a good question. I think it was Ken McDonald, he's a Liberal member of Parliament from Newfoundland and Labrador, was on television the other day, and he was saying that he has considered voting non-confidence in the government. He hasn't done it yet, but he's considered it. I mean, that's a pretty big step, and that's one member of Parliament, and if there's more like him, well, all of a sudden the numbers start getting pretty interesting in the House of Commons. The other challenge Mr. Trudeau has, frankly, and I thought about this yesterday, is let's say there were 20 to 30 members of the caucus who went into that meeting yesterday and said, look, I'm not happy where things are, but you know what? He's the Prime Minister. He's earned a right to have his say, and I want to hear from him because I think I'll feel better after I hear from him. And after 2 or 3 hours of all of this, they came out of that meeting and said, oh, my goodness, it's worse than I ever thought. The guy is out on Planet 9. Where's a pen? I want to sign that letter. He could make the situation actually worse and have even more people wanting to sign that letter. So, I mean, it's unknown at this point because it's still so fresh, but the problem could actually get worse for him.
Okay, when we come back, we'll rewind the tape and go back to yesterday's question period and revisit the issue of foreign interference and the latest line of attack from Mr. Trudeau against Mr. Poilievre. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
It's our Newsday panel, and we are here with Gary Keller. He's Vice President of Strategy Corps. Cam Holmstrom, Principal at Neepaway Strategy. So I want to rewind, go back to yesterday's question period, focus on something else, and that is foreign interference and the latest line of attack from Mr. Trudeau on Mr. Poilievre, that Mr. Poilievre must have something to hide because he is refusing to get the needed security clearance in order to read the full report from NSICOP on foreign interference, something that Mr. Singh has already done and Elizabeth May has already done, and Mr. Poilievre refuses to do so because he says it would muzzle him. I thought Michael Chong made some valuable points yesterday in rebuttal to Mr. Trudeau's line of attack, so let's play the audio and we'll get your reaction. This is from the question period yesterday.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition is about to get up one more time in this House to say some words. I recommend that at this point he choose those words to apply to explaining to Canadians why he will not get the necessary security clearance from our national intelligence agencies to be able to protect not just his party and their institutions and their members, but all Canadians. Any leader who wants to take national security seriously should be able to listen to the information that CSIS wants to share them instead of covering his ears and going la 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 like.
And this is Michael Chong.
The Honourable Member from Wellington Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, I'll tell you the briefing the Leader of the Opposition will take. He'll take the same kind of briefing the Washington Post got on classified information from the National Security and Intelligence Advisor and the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs. He'll take the same briefing that I got under Section 12.1 of the CSIS Act, threat reduction measures to reduce threats to the security of Canada. He'll take the same classified briefing that the Prime Minister has been all too willing to give to this House when it suits him, such as the classified information he revealed about Mr. Najjar's killing a year ago and other classified information revealed in the last several weeks about India. That's the kind of briefing the Leader of the Opposition will take.
Okay, thank you. Gary, what's your reaction to what Michael Chong said to Mr. Trudeau yesterday?
Well, and you know, setting the scene before that, you know, Mr. Trudeau last week at the foreign interference inquiry had the gall to come out and say, I would never use national security to advance a political partisan priority. And he's been doing nothing since that. And Mr. Chong makes some very good points. You know, Mr. Poilievre and his chief of staff have been briefed under that specific section of the CSIS Act that Mr. Chong reiterated in the House, and Mr. Poilievre continues to insist that he believes, and I think we should take him at face value, that he feels that he will be muzzled in his ability to hold the government to account. That is his job as Leader of the Opposition, to hold the government to account. What I find really distasteful are efforts by the Prime Minister now to, you know, suggest that Mr. Poilievre has something to hide. These are the rumors from the deepest, darkest corners of the internet that the TrueAnon crowd, the real Trudeau believers, like
that. There's something in Poilievre's background that, you know,
You know, the Prime Minister decries misinformation and disinformation. This is the root and the hardest core of misinformation and disinformation that the Prime Minister is choosing to reiterate for political partisan purposes on the floor of the House of Commons. I think it's personally quite disgusting, and I think it doesn't show any seriousness whatsoever around foreign interference when we all know that the biggest problem that the Liberal government has had around foreign interference has been around all sorts of accusations. And, you know, the Prime Minister's latest, this is all deflection and distraction from the real issue here. And I think Mr. Poilievre would also say, look, you're worried about me getting security clearances? Don't worry, I'm going to have all the clearances I need in a few short months.
All right. We're a little tight on time, Cam. I'll give you more time after the break, but we do have about a minute left if you want to go. Go ahead.
Okay. Honestly, this is why I have my issue with Mr. Trudeau, and it plays into what we talked about before. there are legitimate reasons to question why Mr. Poilievre is not getting his clearance. And all the excuses so far don't add up. And it's former CSIS officials themselves that are saying it doesn't add up. And there have been public accusations, particularly around the last Conservative leadership race and alleged involvement by the government of India. And that he doesn't want to know about that. The problem is, Mr. Trudeau is a flawed messenger, to put it mildly. Is that, you know what? Do I believe that the civil service would allow him to play politics with some of this stuff? I don't. But the fact of the matter is that he, as a spokesperson, is tainted, and he is not going to be trusted as much as he could be, which is all the more reason why he needs to go, because this is a very serious issue, and unfortunately, we can't get to have serious discussions about this because of the messenger in this case.
Okay, when we come back, today's reversal on immigration, announced by the Prime Minister and the Immigration Minister, Mark Miller. We'll talk about the immigration file when we return. Newsday panel on News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio.
Back with Gary Keller, Cam Holmstrom. Let's turn our attention to the big news of this day, which is the new targets for immigration. It was to be 500,000 permanent residency spaces next year for Canada. That number is being drastically reduced by 100,000, and it's by my math, about a 24% reduction over 3 years by the year 2027. So it's a big reversal and climb down from the Trudeau Liberals. What do you think about it, Cam? What was announced today?
You know what? I'm always concerned with slapdash plans, because when you start to get into the details, it makes you wonder how they got at that point. And I saw a really good comment today from a head of a research institute out of Northwestern Ontario, talking about how in a lot of rural areas, population decline has been the problem, and we've seen, as you put it, you saw the light at the end of the tunnel coming from the problem because of immigration into these regions. And his concern is that, well, look, is this just going to slam the brakes on that and set these communities back to where they were 15 years ago, because the government hadn't properly planned this out and ensured people were going to right regions? So that's my worry here, is that where are the cuts going to be? Is it going to be where it's rational, where it makes sense, or is it going to be highly political to favor one region, i.e. Quebec, for example, with large cuts there and others not seeing it? Again, this is slapdash back of the napkin kind of thing.
Okay.
That always makes me worry when I see policy being done that way.
Okay, how about that, Gary? Is this government by polling? What do you think here?
Well, they're clearly in trouble, and this has been a major issue. And it's not just immigration. You know, things like healthcare, education, housing, all tied to the increase, challenge in those areas tied to the increase in immigration numbers, has put downward pressures all through the country, especially in the GTA, especially in large cities, the lower mainland of BC. And they're just reacting to it now. And what I really fear, and I've said this for some time, is that the Canadian consensus that immigration is a net positive. The way the Trudeau government approached it, essentially they broke the system, and we're starting to see cleavages in that system across the country where people are starting to question immigration as a net positive. And I think that's bad for Canada. We've had that bipartisan consensus for a long time, and I watch it very closely, and I continue to watch it, especially as we lead up to the next election. But you know what? They broke the system. They get to own it.
Yeah, I think. It's quite something. The Environics poll that came out a few days ago was really eye-opening. We are now at a point where 60% of Canadians are saying immigration levels are too high. It's a number that hasn't been seen in 25 years.
And it's becoming a top issue on the
issue,
and where it has not.
It was barely registering. It was barely on the radar screen as an issue.
Yeah. But you know what, though? Yeah. This is where this government has always fallen flat from the very beginning. It's the details. You know what? It's always been the details. The small details they keep screwing up, and you can point to so many issues across the board on it where they've taken their eye off the ball on the small details, and it's those things that are blown up and created bigger issues, right? Okay. And to be
policy is the announcement.
Okay, we have to run. Thank you to the both of you. Very busy day today. Lots to talk about. Thank you so much. We'll speak soon.
Great to be with you.
Yeah, bye-bye. Cam Holmstrom is principal at Nipaway Strategies. Gary Keller is vice president of Strategy Corps. They're both in Ottawa today, as am I. The talkback is coming up right after the news at the top of the hour. Immigration is the topic today. It's one of the big news stories in the nation's capital today. We'll get to your calls and outline the topic when we come back.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. And today's topic is a big one. It's immigration. This is a big news story in Ottawa today, with not one but two events happening in your nation's capital. First of all, we had the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, and his immigration, Mark Miller, had a news conference, and then they had a technical briefing for the news media, and that's what happens when that's when the experts, okay, in the immigration department, the bureaucrats, they have a briefing with news reporters, and they outlined to news reporters off the record on what the announcement actually means for Canada's immigration system, you know, the details. So the story was already leaked to the news media about what was going to be announced today. We had highly placed people in the Trudeau government whispering things in the ears of various journalists. So it is now been announced that the Trudeau government is going to cut the number of permanent residents accepted into the country from 485,000 this year to 395,000 next year, 2025. It was supposed to originally be 500,000. Instead, it's going to be 395,000, so it's a reduction of more than 100,000. And then the following year, it's going to be cut again, down to 380,000 for 2026. And then it's going to be cut again, down to 365,000 for 2027. Those are the numbers. So it's a reduction over the next 3 years from 485,000 down to 365,000, and that is a cut of 24%. So it's big. Okay? It's a big cut, but even at 365,000 is still a big number. I mean, that's still a fair-sized Canadian city. It's about the population of Halifax or Oshawa or Windsor, Ontario, or Saskatoon or Victoria, British Columbia. But what it really is this is a major policy reversal for the Trudeau Liberals, who boasted that Canada is the most friendly country for immigrants and made a habit of labeling anyone who criticized their handling of the immigration system, labeling people as racist. But now there's clearly been a recognition in public opinion that things have turned and Canadians have soured on immigration. And obviously that is showing up, I'm sure, in the government's own internal polling, and I bet you that a lot of MPs are hearing things at the doors. So the recognition is that something has to be done, and this is what they're doing. This is the latest thing that they're doing. A substantial decrease in the number of permanent residency spaces. So also in the news reporting, it has been revealed that the Trudeau Liberals are going to set targets for the various streams of temporary immigration, namely international students and people here on temporary work permits. So as it stands right now, Canada's population is 41.7 million people, and 7.3% of that 41.7 million are people who are supposed to be here temporarily on various permits, study permits, work permits, temporary. But that's more than 3 million people. It's 3.04 million people. The goal is to get that percentage down to 5% over the next 3 years, from 7.3% down to 5% over the next 3 years. So that's the news. That's the nuts and bolts of today's news. So here is what we are hoping to do today during Talkback with your help. We want to hear from people who have been immigrants to Canada. If you are an immigrant to Canada, you are our priority today. if you have come to Canada from another country, I don't know, say in the last 25 or 30 years. That's not a hard and fast rule or anything. This is just more of a suggestion. But if you've come here from another country with the ultimate goal of, building a better life, becoming maybe one day a Canadian citizen, what we want to get at is, what is that process like? For example, to become a permanent resident, I mean, how long does that take? What's involved with that? How much did it cost? What kind of hoops did the government make you jump through? Would you say it was, a relatively easy process, or was it long and difficult and arduous and expensive? I'd love to know your opinion on it. And was it worth it in the end? Was it worth it in the end? Whatever time and effort it took to come to Canada. I'm seeing more and more news stories more often about people who came to Canada with hopes and dreams of having a better life, but it hasn't worked out that way because of lack of employment opportunities, lack of housing, high cost of living, and increasingly people are thinking about going back to their home country or moving on to another country. What's been your experience? Was it worth it coming to Canada? Canada's immigration system before this government came to office, it had a very good reputation. What country does immigration really well? Canada, they would say, for a long time. That was our reputation internationally, but not anymore. And I would argue that for a very long time, Canada's very open to immigration. Canadians, for the most part, always exceptions, of course, but for the most part, Canadians viewed immigration as necessary and important, good for the country. But sadly, now the polls aren't saying that anymore. And many Canadians are questioning whether the immigration system is working the way it was intended to. And you hear this from time to time, and more often now. Gary Keller just said it before the news. The Canadian consensus on immigration has been broken, and this is the government that broke it, the Trudeau government. So while we wait to take some calls, and every single line is available right now, 1-833-668-2577, 1-833-668-2577. If you came from another country, again, the last 3 decades or so, what is wrong with the Canadian immigration system and how can it be improved? I really, really, really hope to hear from people who've come here as immigrants, who have experience with the immigration system, who have been through the process and lived to tell about it. People who have seen the good, the bad, and the ugly about the immigration system. I have no experience with this. I'm a 53-year-old white guy. I was born here. I never left. So our priority today is to set our phone lines aside for callers who do have experience with the immigration system. Please share your stories. The Trudeau government is basically admitting we messed things up, and now we're going to try and fix it. What do you think needs to be fixed? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. If you've never called before, just mention that to Andrea, and we will make your call a priority. I'm Rob Snow. It's Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Our priority today is hearing from people who have been through the immigration system, who have been immigrants to Canada, to help us better understand the immigration system. What was the immigration system like when you were trying to come to Canada? Was coming to Canada worth it? What do you think the federal government could do to make improvements to the immigration system? Let's go first to Gary is calling from Cambridge. Hello, Gary.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, Gary. Thank you. Thanks for calling.
So it was 100% worth it.
100% worth it. Okay, good, good. Where did you come from, Gary?
Syria in 2001.
Syria in 2001. Okay.
So I like to just remind some of your listeners
Yes.
that in 2001, minimum wage was $7.25. My first one-bedroom apartment rent was $725. So that's 100 hours of work before tax deductions. If you do the same math, it's almost the same now. So a lot of people today, they complain that the rent is very expensive.
Yeah.
So if your minimum wage is about $16 and your average one-bedroom is $1,600.
Well, now it's $17.25 now, I believe, in Ontario. Yeah.
What I'm saying is the equation is very similar.
Okay.
So back then, you had to work over 100 hours to pay rent. And it's almost the same now. So on that, it didn't really change much. Is it easy to come to a new country? Absolutely not.
Right.
It comes with difficulties, all kinds of difficulties, language, traditions, let's say, or what is right or what is wrong.
Culture. Yeah.
Culture, exactly. So I worked 3 jobs, 7 days a week for 4 years.
Wow.
Before I was able to go down to 2 jobs, 6 days a week. But again, is it worth it? 100%.
Okay. If you could suggest maybe improvements to the immigration system, do you have anything in mind, Gary?
No, not really. Not really. I mean, I'm not an expert in that field, but like I said, the challenges they've always been there.
Okay.
And always will be there. Obviously, your personal circumstances will be a big factor. For example, I knew families that came with adult children, and those adult children were able to work, and all of a sudden, you have 4 incomes or 3 incomes to support rent versus 1. So you cannot compare that to a single person who wants to live on his own, let's say, in a one-bedroom apartment.
All right, Gary.
So there are, and some people, let's say, they have degrees, and the family work where the other person can write their exams, and now they have very good paying jobs. So there are all kinds of differences, all kinds of different circumstances that will affect an immigrant. But overall, there are challenging years at the beginning. If you can suffer through, definitely 110% worth it.
Thank you, sir, for your call. Let's go to Jana calling from Halifax. Hello, Jana.
Yes, hello.
Hi, Jana.
Hello, can you hear me?
I hear you just fine, Jana. Go ahead.
Yes. I'm calling for the first time.
I appreciate
that. Thank you
that.
so much for taking my call. I came to Halifax in Nova Scotia. I came in December of 1992 from former Soviet Union.
Oh, okay.
From Ukraine, from Odessa.
Okay.
And I made my home here in Halifax. When I came, I came from former Soviet Union, so I claim refugee status, political asylum. I came with no language. I only had $350 in my pocket.
Gosh.
And a baby.
Wow.
He was 11 months old, my son, and we made our life here. I'm very glad, and I every time I go somewhere and I come back to Halifax, this is my home. I kiss the ground. I love Halifax, Nova Scotia. I love people. I always felt welcome here. I learned my language here. I think most, because I have been working in real estate for 16 years now, and I work a lot in the newcomers community, people that come and settle in.
Oh, that's
and they
interesting.
start buying homes.
Yes.
And I believe that the most important number one issue right now, yes, I understand it's immigration, but it's actually housing, because housing became so expensive.
Yeah.
and building houses very expensive. So when I think the biggest problem, if somehow we were able, and government is doing many things. They're removing some of the restrictions, for instance, like R1 zoning. And we in Halifax, we don't have R1 zoning anymore. So
Right.
people can make secondary suites in their homes.
Sure.
And it helps Canadians, people
So,
that live here. And have
look, our time is a little tight, Jana, and I apologize for that. But you think if we could somehow alleviate, the pressure on the housing market, maybe a lot of the concern about immigration would subside?
Yes.
You think so? Yeah, it's kind of a chicken and egg kind of thing, though. Would there be so much pressure on the housing market if immigration levels weren't too high? It's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Okay, Jana, thank you. But it was worth it, though. It was worth it, right?
It's worth it, and we need manufactured housing.
Yeah, manufactured housing. Sure. Okay, thank you, Jana. Thank you. Good, interesting points. Shane came here from Australia 15 years ago, you said?
Yep.
Right? Yeah. And it was worth it, and you enjoyed it and everything?
Yeah, I did.
Didn't take too long?
It was still a painful process, and even renewing I just had to renew my PR card late last year.
Okay.
And again, it's still... everything had to be printed and photocopied and then snail mailed to the center in wherever, I think it was in Cape Breton, and then
okay.
It still took like and I was kind of in a rush to do it because I do travel a fair bit for work in and out of the country.
Okay.
And I couldn't even just jump in my car and drive 4 hours and drop it at the door. It had to be like couriered and then sent down, and then it still took like 9 weeks almost to get back. And it's like, all of this stuff should be digitized.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
It's 2024. We live in a world where innovation is at the forefront, and
yes.
And I don't think we're there. And I think to some people's point about housing, I disagree with housing. I think we're building houses at a fine rate.
Well,
but for me, it's healthcare.
Okay.
It's like, and I've been in Nova Scotia 15 years, and we have not added like new hospital beds. And last year, when I took my family home back to Brisbane, Brisbane already has like 21 hospitals across the city. Yes, it's 2.5 million people, but Nova Scotia's population has doubled since I've been here, and we haven't added a new hospital.
Right.
Like the small suburb that my parents live in was small when I left home, and now it's up to 400,000 or 500,000, and it has 2 hospitals in it within 12 years.
Wow.
14 years.
Wow.
It's like it's the vision this country has is, I don't know where it is. You know what I mean? Like,
okay.
I don't think penalizing immigrants is the right thing to do for lack of government vision for the future.
Very
it is a great country to live. It is a great country to live.
Okay.
But we're so far behind in like basic infrastructure.
Basic infrastructure. Okay. Very interesting, Shane. I thank you so much for hanging on there and being patient today. I really appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you.
Yeah. Very, very busy today on this topic. Let's go to Gustavo, also calling from Halifax today. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for calling.
I'm great. This is the best country in the world, and I come from the second best.
And what's that, sir?
Brazil.
Brazil.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
I come from Rio de Janeiro.
Wow.
It is a very dangerous city.
Okay.
Lots of infrastructure problems. So you talk about infrastructure, you don't know what it is to be in the public bus, squeeze like fish for 2 hours to go to work, and it's not even that far.
Okay.
So every time people say that Peggy's Cove is, relatively far from downtown, I'm always like, what? You call 15 minutes far? Because I used to do that commute every day to work. Double that. So, yeah, but Canada, Halifax specifically has a lot of problems with infrastructure because of the amount of people that received after COVID and the immigration through the provinces. The immigrants are coming here because Halifax is is more lenient towards immigration. We have the Atlantic Immigration Program,
Yes.
and it's easier to immigrate in the Atlantic. That is because the Atlantic needed more people, way more than the West a while back. But I don't think it is at the same stage as it was when they created those programs. And many immigrants came here from Ontario because they couldn't get their permanent residency there, and they just came here, and the city didn't keep up. So Halifax is a wonderful city, and Canada is a wonderful country. And I see a lot of hatred when the topic of immigration comes. And people are not really realizing it's just the housing issue. It's not that big of a problem. You guys have to really, there's a lot of problems with regulations in Canada because U.S. also has a lot of immigration and more illegal immigration, I believe, than Canada. And houses are still more affordable there. Why is that? I think that has to do with regulation.
Regulation, red tape, bureaucracy, fees, taxes, those sorts of
exactly.
things. Right.
It shouldn't be that bad because U.S. has a lot of immigration, possibly more than us. And it isn't. The houses are way more affordable there. Or if you go to Alberta, houses are still way more affordable there. There's way less tax to buy a home there. So that's what the government.
So Gustavo, I want to kind of get a few things, if you don't mind, just because you came here from another country, you've been through the system. Like when you came here from Brazil to get that permanent residency, how long did that take? Do you remember?
I'm here. It's going to be 2 years. I'm here next month, and it took me about 11 months.
About 11 months. Okay.
Ever since I started.
Was it expensive to do that? To go through all of that?
Well, the government charges a $1,500 fee to
$1,500. Wow. Okay. All right.
$1,400 about that, and there's the biometric fees, $1,500.
Yeah.
But apart from that, I never expend money with lawyers or anything on that.
You didn't. You did it all on your own?
No, I did. You can do it on your own. I mean, the Atlantic Immigration Program is very simple.
Okay.
It's a foolproof. So
it's foolproof.
Really
okay, that's interesting.
It's foolproof. Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't really have to have a high.
So look, I mean, Canadians. Just in the last 2 years, I mean, this has really burst onto the scene as a big issue. Okay, and now the polls are saying Canadians think we're taking in too many immigrants. And Mr. Trudeau today said we're cutting back the number of permanent residents 24% over 3 years. Like it's a big cut. It's 6 figures here. So
he doesn't know what he's doing. He
doesn't know what he's doing. Why do you say that?
Idea.
Okay.
He's not knowledge in anything that he's doing. He's only doing that for popularity, for maintaining his popularity.
Okay.
It's obvious. He's seeing that the Conservatives are becoming very popular, tackling the biggest issue in Canada right now, which is the housing crisis. And Trudeau finally noticed that he has to make a move. He has to at least change his speech. But Trudeau is a guy that seems to me that he is hollow. He doesn't really have ideas. He's not knowledgeable about anything that he's saying. He's a drama teacher and he's an actor.
Right.
Sorry to say that. I don't want to be offensive to anyone.
That's okay.
That's what he is. It's very clear.
All right. You could write ads for the Conservative Party, Gustavo. You could. Okay.
Well, I'm very excited about Pierre Poilievre.
You are? Okay.
I think he's the solution to fix the housing crisis.
Right.
And I think we do have to lower down the immigration numbers. And Pierre he has not been talking about it very much because he's also concerned because a huge part of this country is made of immigrants. So Pierre is very, very concerned about that.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
But I think if the Conservatives come in, they're going to make changes.
Okay. Gustavo, thank you.
Well, thank you so
Really
much.
good to hear from you. Yeah, thank you. Came here from Brazil. Okay. Majed in Nova Scotia, thank you for calling. Go ahead. Hi there.
Hi, yes. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Glad to hear it.
So,
yes.
Just to give you a little my backstory, I came here in the end of the 80s, early 90s as a young child with my parents.
Okay. From where?
From Lebanon.
From Lebanon.
Going through a war there.
Yes.
And at the same time, my mother, I was actually born in Romania, and Romania was going through its own revolution with overthrowing Ceausescu and communism and all that, so we couldn't go there. So we chose Canada. And Canada is my country through and through. Grown up here, this is all I know. So my personal insight is I don't think the immigration itself, the procedures, the standards, because I'm actually helping my father with his new wife. It still takes a couple of years to get anything accepted for PR or to get citizenship afterwards as well. So the process is almost the same.
Really?
But I think that the perception of immigrants has changed. It's a lot easier to be, after COVID, I find that a lot more people find it easier to be openly racist, to be honest with you.
Honestly, okay.
And I've personally experienced that in many ways just because my name is different.
Yes.
Through Facebook, I've actually been threatened. I've been name-called. My fiance's white girl with British ancestry, and she never even realized how much racism there is, and just different things. Yeah, so I think what's happened is
you think immigrants are being scapegoated, sir?
I truly believe that. One of my favorite memes that I've seen on Facebook is a guy standing there, rich-looking, top hat, kind of like the Monopoly guy, holding 99 cookies, pointing to a table and telling a guy, hey, look, that immigrant's going to take your cookie. Leaving the one there. So kind of pitting people against each other while certain class of people get richer. And I think that's where my perception is. And I know that immigration is a necessity for Canada because we do have a negative population. We just don't produce enough.
Well, we have a fertility rate that's at an all-time low in this country, right? Where Canadians are just not having children as much as they used to in the past.
Not affordable. I have two kids of my own, and thank goodness they're pretty much grown up now and can start living a life without having to spend so much on children. So, yeah, absolutely. The cost of living is exponential, but immigration itself. So I know during COVID, there was no immigration. So the government tried to make up for it by blowing it up and taking in too much, which at the same time, like neither one is good because we don't have. So I moved to Nova Scotia from Ontario, actually Niagara Falls, worked in the tourism industry.
Okay.
And Niagara region is the backbone is those students, the foreign students. Niagara College is probably 2/3 are foreign students, and the hotel work and the vineyards, places like that, they all need these foreign students that are willing to work the minimum wage jobs, work the extra hours, work, it's a whole different kind of work ethic for very low paying jobs. And I think what he's doing right now by cutting it, he's already cut the amount of student visas that are accepted and what kind of classes that are accepted. This coming summer, it's going to be such a shortage on employees. It's going to hurt a lot of.
You think so? Yeah, that's interesting.
Absolutely. So we're going to actually have the opposite effect come next year, where a lot of businesses are just scrambling to hire anybody. We're going to have a huge, I think, employee shortage. We're playing with a rubber band, stretching it one way and screwing it up. Now stretching it the other way and screwing it up. And
all right.
That's my personal take on that.
Well, very good, Majed. Thank you for your call. Really appreciate the insight today. We have to stop. We have to stop here. We're a little tight on time. We'll be right back. Everybody who is on the air is on hold right now. You will get on the air. Just hang on. 1-833-668-2577. I'm Rob Snow. This is Talk Back on News Radio.
In the 660 News Radio Groundworks Traffic Center, I'm Tanya Blakeney. Rogers Bank. If you're new to Canada, apply for a Rogers Red MasterCard for 3% cashback value. For select countries, Rogers Bank considers your credit history from back home. Learn more at rogersbank.com. There is a multi-vehicle crash in the city's northeast. It's on Deerfoot Trail heading northbound, approaching Airport Trail. You'll find emerge crews on site. There's also a crash in the city's northwest on Crowchild heading southbound near Nose Hill Drive. It's only the left lane getting through. If there's something in your way, it's a free call, star or pound 660. Meet Seeker, the free app for live radio, podcasts, and more. Stay entertained and informed all in one place. Download Seeker today. Seeker, seek your sounds.
We'll see sun into the afternoon today. Highs punching up to about 10 degrees. Drops down to -4 overnight. Mainly sunny tomorrow too, but the northerly breeze and some cooler air filtering in. 7 or 8 for a high on Friday. This afternoon it gets up to 10.
Hey there, it's your friends from Toyota.
We see you pining over that RAV4 at the light. And guess what? The light's been green for a while now. It's time to stop dreaming about that new Toyota and start driving one. Lease a 2024 RAV4 LE all-wheel drive from $91 weekly for 64 months at 5.69% with $3,999 down. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Prairie Toyota dealer today.
When was the last time someone asked you a really good question? Not,
how about that local sports team?
But a question that made you think. Like,
what's a goal you're working towards?
At ATB, we know the best answers come from asking thoughtful questions, getting to know you until together we answer the question no search engine or influencer can. What's the right thing to do for you? That's how ATB powers possibility.
The federal budget has just been announced, and whilst it was labeled a budget for the middle classes, the impact on high net worth individuals and their families has the potential to be rather less positive. Paul Lindsay from Macmillan Estate Planning tells us more.
For high earners and those with substantial estates, the budget brought about the expected increase to the capital gains tax inclusion rate, such that 2/3 of gains in excess of $250,000 will now be subject to tax. Beyond that, CRA remain committed to the alternate minimum tax for those that generate substantial income from their estate. What this budget reinforces is that it is more important than ever to get your estate planning in order without delay.
Register for Macmillan's next complimentary webinar today at macmillanestate.com or call 1-833-266-6464. Macmillan Estate Planning. Safeguarding significance.
Live and local. Everything Calgary. 660 News Radio.
Random quotes.
Never let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game. Babe Ruth.
Random quotes.
Keep smiling because life is a beautiful thing and there's so much to smile about. Marilyn Monroe.
CFFR AM.
A Rogers radio station.
660 News Radio Calgary. Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Hearing from people who have been immigrants to Canada today on the immigration system, and the big announcement today from Mr. Trudeau cutting back on, by more than 100,000 on the number of permanent residency spaces. Maninder in Calgary. Hello, Maninder.
Hey, Rob.
Hi. Go ahead. What's your opinion?
Well, you tell me. I mean, you cut down 100,000 number in 1 year. What's going on?
Okay. What do you think of that?
I don't know. I mean, it tells you the planning, right?
Okay. You think
November 2023, you have a different statement. November 2024, you're cutting down 100,000.
Right.
It's just blaming the immigrants on not proper policy, no foresight. I mean, doesn't make sense at all.
So you think it's like a stunt kind of thing, almost?
The elections are there, right? So pretty much that's what it is. But I mean, just to give you a kind of feedback, I'm an immigrant, came here 20 years ago from India.
Okay.
Whenever these changes happen, I mean, there are people's lives at stake.
Yes.
There are people who have been here, who are working. There's so many students. I work very closely with immigration.
Okay.
There's so many students who came over the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I mean, they have spent $20, $30, $40, $50,000 per year for tuitions. They're working. I mean, they're working the jobs which no one else is working. So all these numbers, these are not just numbers. I mean, there are people who are sitting in the queue who want to be permanent residents, who want to be citizens, and we invited them. It's not that they just jumped the fence and came in, right?
Yeah.
So anytime these changes are done without thinking, I mean, they're thinking, but they're just thinking it politically, I would say.
Yeah. See, when I have interviewed people in the past, Maninder, who work in the immigration system, whether it's people working for nonprofits or lawyers who have clients in the system, one of their frustrations of late is that the rules keep changing. Like every week there's a new rule. It's like the government knows it's made a real mess of things and it's trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube.
Right.
And people, it's the people who end up being, collateral damage almost.
Right. Right. Like if you're planning, you're the government, you're planning, it should be 5-10 years ahead, right? It's not something which should be changing in like 1 year. So, I don't know. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense at all.
But you're saying there are people who came here, say, under the assumption that they would be allowed to stay here, right?
Absolutely.
Get on the path to permanent residency, eventually citizenship, and the government keeps changing things.
Right, because the government is the one who has showed them the path, right? So they advertise, come as a student, get the education, we'll give you a work permit for 3 years, you work, and then you complete a 1 year experience and you become PR, right? So it's we are inviting us, we are showing them the path, we are charging them crazy money. It's like 3 times, 4 times the fee. And then, we're just giving a random number without any, I don't know what to say. It doesn't make sense at all.
Doesn't make sense at all. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. We need immigration, that's for sure. But people are already here. They're working.
Right.
They have the education. They have the skills. So, what are you doing? The housing is not going to change because these people are already here, right? They're already in Canada. The students are already here. The workers are already here. The temporary foreign workers are already here. So just giving a negative information and playing with people's lives is not right.
All right. Meninder, thank you.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
The immigration system is one of the big news stories in the country today, and that is our topic for Talk Back, and we have lines available. The Trudeau government is announcing a big reduction in the number of permanent residency spaces in Canada. Overall, it's going to be a cut of about 24% over 3 years. We're looking to hear from people who have been immigrants to Canada. That's our priority today, to help us understand the immigration system better based on your own experience. What was the immigration system like when you were trying to come to Canada? Was it worth it to come to Canada? What's your reaction to this news? All the polls are saying, unfortunately, Canadians are turning against immigration now. It's very unusual in Canada, actually, that is the sentiment, but increasingly that is the sentiment. And if you have any thoughts on what you think the federal government could do to help improve the immigration system, we're all ears at 1-833-668-2577, 1-833-668-2577. Tony in Halifax, you're very patient, Tony, and I appreciate you waiting there. It was very busy.
Well, no problem at all, Rob. Thank you very much, and thank you for taking my call.
You're welcome.
I came to Canada first in 1995 to chase a woman who
Where'd you come from?
I loved. U.S.
From the United States. Okay, all right.
And I chased a Canadian lady who, sweet lady she is my wife, has been for quite a while.
That's nice.
At any rate, the landed immigrant issue, first applied for landed immigrants. Actually, I applied for, what the heck did they call them, Rich? A landed immigrant rather than a PR, permanent resident.
Yes.
That was way back before the permanent resident became into play. But at any rate, as fate would have it, in 2002, my wife got transferred. She was in the Canadian Navy to the U.S. again. So we went back to the U.S.
Okay.
And I still hadn't gotten my landed immigrant status. So in 2007, when we came back, first of all, had a hell of a time getting through the border to come back into Canada. And the second thing is that I had to reapply for what then became the PR situation, permanent resident. Well, the permanent residence that I went through, I had to get fingerprints from the RCMP.
Okay.
I had to get give them a copy of my U.S. tax return. Yeah. And I had to go for a doctor's a physical. And all of these things cost money.
Sure.
and an FBI check. The fingerprints had to be sent to the FBI in the U.S.
Okay.
and then returned back to Canada.
Right.
To
So it was quite a process.
At any rate,
Yeah.
it was a process. Took 14 more months.
Wow.
So I became a full PR, permanent resident, in January of 2008. And I've been a PR since then. And by choice. I could apply for citizenship if I wanted to. There's some issues that can be conflicting in the U.S. I'm a retired U.S. sailor, and they can do some things with my pension, so I have to be very careful how I deal with them.
Okay.
And by the way, I have to pay taxes in both countries, no matter what. So to make a long story short, the process wasn't particularly easy, and the final step was to be interviewed by immigration here in Halifax, and that wasn't very pretty. They asked some pretty nasty questions. I'll give you one. I'm significantly older than my wife, and we'd been married for years by the time we went to the interview, and the person that interviewed me asked me, is this a marriage of love, or is this a marriage of necessity, or a marriage out of
Convenience
other
or
reasons?
something. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right, yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then asked me, I don't want to go into it. There's another little story attached to it.
Okay.
But it wasn't easy.
Yes.
It wasn't easy. It wasn't super costly.
Okay.
And now, I never worked in Canada. I have never worked a day in Canada. I was fortunate enough with my retirements and my wife's job in the military and then her retirement that I didn't have to work.
Right.
And I didn't take anything when not...
Okay.
And I didn't take a dime out of the Canadian system. I do have an MSI card because I pay taxes.
Right, a
That's
health
why
card,
I
yeah.
have an MSI card.
Right. Okay.
I want to mention two things.
Okay, very quickly. Yeah.
Asylum seekers and refugees. Canada and the U.S. have gotten into this problem because the system has been corrupted. The U.S. has a quota system for other countries around the world, for 109 countries or something like that. And there's people waiting to come into the U.S. legally, and they can't get in because of the border issues in California and Texas, et cetera, et cetera. And you have that same problem here. You have it in B.C. They come in, they don't follow the third-party rule, and that's Canada's fault. Canada is part of the third-party rule. If somebody comes in through a different country, i.e. the U.S., and ends up at the border coming into Canada...
Right. You mean the safe third country agreement, you mean?
Right, the safe third country agreement.
Yeah,
exactly right.
Right.
And I think Canada has lost sight of that.
Okay.
And they were so interested in getting new people, and then it became, I understand that Roxham Road is still wide open. I mean, I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, I can't speak to that. But, okay, finally, in your final point, sir. We'll have to wrap things up here pretty soon.
Final point is that I'm glad to be here. We have an election coming up in the U.S., and I did vote, and I'm very afraid of the outcome.
Okay, all right. We'll
is
wrap it up on that
sort of
point.
a safe zone for me.
Well, Tony, thank you. Okay, bye-bye. Yeah, safe harbor.
Have a great day.
Yeah, fair enough.
for
You
your
too.
time.
Thank you. Go ahead, Nerman. Thank you.
Hey, Rob, how's it going?
It goes, sir. Thank you. How are you?
Not bad.
Not bad. Okay. All right.
So, just on immigration, I've been here 27 years now.
27. Wow.
I came after the Yugoslavian war.
Oh. Okay.
In ex-Yugoslavia, we were a refugee in a couple of countries before we ended up coming to Canada.
Right.
Process was a little harder than we would have expected, and then it took us about 2 years for me and my family, my mom and two of my sisters, my dad. We came all together. But we were interviewed a couple times, and like one of the previous callers says, we had to do the health exams. All that had to be sorted out before we could have even had a chance to come to Canada. So, and then the one good things we did, it was as soon as we landed, we were permanent resident.
As soon as you landed? Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. So that was, I don't know if that was the deal at the time with us coming from that war country that we got a permanent resident right away.
Okay. Okay.
So at that time, they called land an immigrant visa. that we got it. So
Right. Okay.
Then that process wasn't bad. I mean, we got to go to Prince Edward Island. We landed there. We stayed only a short period of time. Then we moved to Vancouver. We lived there. His sister still lived there.
Oh, yeah.
My mom and dad.
From Prince Edward Island to Vancouver is like from one end of the country to the other.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we
And now
stayed
you're
there.
in Calgary. How did you end up in Calgary?
Work.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it was a better opportunity. Obviously, when I came to Canada, I couldn't speak one word of English.
Right.
It was hard. Canada did put us through the schooling, everybody basically. So it's up to you how you take it. I obviously wanted to stay in the country, learn the language, all 9 yards. So help my mom and dad. The one harder part was bringing my wife in Canada.
Okay.
Me and my wife met in Hungary. So we started dating there. I came to Canada. She ended up going in the States. And for her to come in Canada was way harder than you would think anyways. So I had a job. I applied. She was in high school, finishing high school. But because of the misunderstanding through their systems was like, oh, she can't come as a student. But I didn't bring her as a student. I wanted to bring her as my wife. So it took us a good 17 months even to just get to the point that we can actually do anything about it.
17 months?
No, 7 to 8 months.
Oh, 7 to 8 months. Okay. All right. Yep.
Yeah. Then I hired a lawyer. Lawyer was helping me on my side, and she had a teacher. She was in Vermont State, and Office of Barry Sanders, somebody of them, did help her to connect with the Canadian Embassy at the time. I still don't know who was the one that helped us, but they did help us with her status and everything to get the
And in the end, it was all worth it? No regrets?
I don't have any regrets.
Okay.
Okay. Myself. My wife, every now and then, she says, I wish we end up going in the States. Me?
Oh, really? Okay. Right. Okay.
Not so much.
So you know that Canadians are starting to sour on immigration now. And Mr. Trudeau today made a big announcement about cutting back on immigration. What do you think about these things
I agree.
as an immigrant? You agree? Okay.
I agree. Not to the extent like we definitely need immigrants. I'm working right now. I'm in a bigger company that I work as a superintendent. We just hired a bunch of Ukrainians last year. They turn out to be great guys, good workers, show up, and reliable guys, which we need in the construction. We need those people. We need the people show up.
Yes.
So I agree with cuts for one reason. And I don't know, I don't follow that much immigration. I listen to your talk quite a bit.
Thank you.
This is the first time talking to you, although I have a whole bunch of other stuff to say. But,
Well, you can call anytime. So,
yeah, that's right.
Okay.
So with, why I'm agreeing is with immigration, it has to be a system. One of my coworkers years ago asked me, what do I think about Syrian immigration? Where I didn't like about Syrian immigration, they were in the country in less than 40 days. And I didn't agree with that because, how can we, as a human beings, check in the third world country? I come from third world country. I know what I went through. Can check anything about a person that is applying and coming in the country in 40 days.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay. All right.
So,
yeah, I understand that. The same questions are being raised now about resettlement of people from Gaza, of course. Herman, right? Yeah.
Yes. And this is the same thing. I am Muslim. I'm Muslim in religion, and I feel for the Gazans. I'm absolutely there. But the things we cannot just bring the people in country, and then later on, we know you talk about it a couple of weeks ago about the father and son.
Yes.
They were
exactly
same
yeah.
story.
Well,
That's the way I, as a Muslim and as an immigrant, I would like to have a system in place for immigration. This country give a second opportunity for me personally.
Okay.
And then how can we do something in 40 days and bring somebody that we don't even know nothing about it?
Gotcha. All right, Nerman. Look, that's our time. We have to wrap it up. Thank you for calling. Great to hear from you. Very interesting insight there. Great story. Okay. I'm Rob Snow. We're talking about immigration with immigrants today. Love to hear from you and learn from you. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. I'm Rob Snow. It's Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob
Talking
Snow.
about your immigrant experience. Given the news today from Mr. Trudeau cutting back on permanent residency spaces, a 24% cut over 3 years. Quite significant. Some people call it an admission of failure, a dramatic policy reversal. What do you think about the federal government's news here, and what could be done to improve the immigration system? Because Canadians are really souring on immigration, which is not traditionally how Canadians feel about immigration. Minaz in Calgary. Thanks for calling. Great to hear from you today.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
So I listen to your news every day when I drop off my kid after school.
Okay.
But this issue, I wanted to talk about it a long time, and I've been here 24 years. I have seen Calgary grow from, McKnight was the last end, and then now we are going up to City's Cornerstone, and just looking at the Northeast, and that's where I've been for the last 24 years. Every time somebody asks about coming into Canada and whatnot on Facebook, I say one line, that Calgary is closed, don't come in.
Why do you say that? Why do you say that?
Last week we hit -3, and we hit a power grid limit. That I have never seen in my very short stay in Calgary, right? You guys have been living here for a long time. And there is a reason for it. It's the amount of people that came in. Our roads are clogged. Our housing is in crisis. Our job market is already gone through craziness. Like 1,500, I've seen 1,500 people line up for a job at Winners in East Hills this summer.
Wow.
So I just feel like the amount of people, the amount of intake that happened, it's not sustainable yet.
It was too much.
I myself an immigrant. I came in 2001.
From where?
The day before Stampede, we landed, and then I got the biggest culture shock going to Stampede on my second day in Canada.
And you came from where, sir, if you don't mind me asking? Where did you come from?
Oh, I came from Bangladesh.
Bangladesh, okay. All right. Yeah.
So my whole family immigrated. My mom, dad, brother, we all came here. I did my university here, been working here since. And, I have left my garage door wide open, went to school, came back to see that my house was intact back in 2004-5. Now people are checking my car door 4 o'clock in the morning in Redstone area to see if they're open, just so they can get the $5 change out of the car. So the crime rate, the roads, the housing, the electricity, like water shortage, we saw the issue. I'm pretty sure we wouldn't have hit that if we had a
So Mr. Trudeau might say, and some people, other callers might say, you're scapegoating immigrants for some of the country's problems, and those aren't the problems of immigration. Those are the problems of political leaders who have been unable to make decisions. What would you say?
That's true, but I live in Northeast Calgary, and if you ask anybody in Calgary, you would hear the hate that we all live here in this corner. My reason for living here is that it's better for my parents. The grocery shops and mosques and everything is close by. Most of our friends are in this area. That's where we stay.
Yeah.
Here, it's closer to airport. That's the mentality that most immigrants have. So that's why I'm stuck in the northeast area of Calgary. And I have to defend myself every time I talk about this to other people that live in other quadrants of the city. But I love this town. I love this place.
Yeah.
And the way it's going, I have seen my neighbors.
So you think you must think this is a good decision today, then?
I do think it needs to be managed in a way that how people were coming in before, with education, with qualification, with proper checks and balances and stake. I think that needs to be brought in.
All right. We have to run. They're playing the music. They're hauling us off the stage. That's it. We're getting the hook, Minaz. All the best to you. Thank you for your call. Back right after the news on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Talking about the immigration system today from people who have been through it. Let's go to Thomas in Calgary. Thomas, hi there.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, Thomas. How are you?
Oh, not too bad.
That's good. What's your opinion, Thomas?
You know,
okay.
Most of the issues in immigration is the people that work for immigration.
And why do you say that?
Because what I went through immigration for 5 years.
5 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So give me some background. What's the story?
Okay, I came from Argentina, showed up in Toronto with, at the time we didn't need a visa. I asked for a 6-month tourist visa.
Right.
And then because of the problems that I had down there, my parents they have a big business, you know, and I was driving one of the big trucks, and a 5-year-old boy ran between the vehicles, and I hit him, and he died. You know, it wasn't my fault.
Okay.
But anyways, so I decided to come up here, and then I applied, you know, went to immigration, applied for it, and I came with money. But, you know, when I first arrived in Mississauga, the officer he says, people from down there, they don't have that kind of money.
Oh,
And
so
I said,
immediately
well,
suspicious then, right?
Yeah, suspicious, you know.
Okay.
You know, and I said, you know what, that's, my parents have their own business, whatever. No. And so I was put in jail.
Okay.
And the jail system was a wing of a hotel where I was with another guy from England that he was deported. He was being deported, and every evening I was for 5 days, in there. Every evening it was a waiter coming over to ask me what I would like to eat, and I was able to choose from the menu, you know, the 3 meals for the next day.
All right.
And that cost a fortune.
Right.
I mean, a fortune to the country. But anyways, a friend of mine in Toronto was able to sign for me out until, you know, I was going to the hearing. And the hearing was a farce also. It's just, you know, the officer was asking me how come I come to the country, like Canada, as a tourist if I don't know the country.
Right. Okay.
So, but anyways, 2 years later, I was refused, so I left. I went to Mexico for 3.5 months. When I came back, the laws went changing at that time. In '93, they didn't know what to do with me, so I stayed 10 days in Vancouver, and I paid the papers to transfer to Calgary. So from there until I became a landed immigrant for 2.5 years, nobody knew where my papers were. They were confiscated in the Vancouver's
so
airport.
let me get. Okay, it's kind of dizzying all the details here, Thomas. But what I want to get at, would you say that you were open when you first came here all those years ago? I mean, were you open and honest that you were coming here to live, to settle?
No, first of all, like I had a ticket.
Then wouldn't the
open for a
Canadian
year.
officials be right to be suspicious then? Like you
Yes,
presented
but-
yourself as, oh, I'm just here as a tourist, when your intent all along was to be an immigrant, right?
I agree 100%.
Okay, then. Okay.
When I came up here, I had an open ticket for a year, okay?
Right.
Like I paid $3,000 US at the time for a ticket. So anyways, that was the idea, to stay just for a year and then go back. But the problems that we're keeping having it back home. So I talked with people, with my lawyer back home, and I talked with a lawyer up here, and they said, well, you know, your best bet is just to try to stay here.
Okay. So how did it all get resolved in the end, Thomas?
At the end, yes, I became a landed immigrant.
Right.
In '95.
In '95.
And then a year later, I applied for the citizenship.
Right. And are you a citizen now?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, since '96.
96. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and You know, and all in all, I work my butt off, 14, 16, 18 hours a day. Last year, after 19 years on the mortgage, I finished to pay the home.
Good for you.
And no, it's all in all, it's good,
Right. But I have heard it described in the past, immigration is an industry in Canada. Would you agree? It's
yes,
an industry.
I don't know if in a way it is, in a way it isn't,
Okay. All right. Well,
it's
certainly, the opinion.
I mean,
Okay.
If people, let's say you want to come to Canada, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, apply. If you know that you're going to stay here or you're going to immigrate to Canada, apply from the embassy. The embassy should check you out from top to bottom, in and out, whatever.
Okay.
You're clean, okay. You're allowed to come up here. You're allowed to stay for 6 months. We check you out. We're going to keep an eye on you. If you're going to work, if you don't run into problems or whatever, fine. We give you another 6 months. When I applied, I asked.
Yeah, I don't have time. I don't have time to go back through the whole story again, Thomas. All right, I'm glad it worked out for you in the end. I will say, to my own opinion, I think you should have been more open and honest right up front about your intentions, and then maybe
that wasn't my intention.
Yeah,
that wasn't my intention.
I don't know. I think it would have saved you a lot of grief by the sounds of things. We'll be right back. I'm Rob Snow. It's Talkback. Still time for some calls. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. That's our call-in line. This is News Radio. On the federal government's changes to the immigration system, we're hearing from people who have been immigrants to Canada. Let's go to Rachel calling from Calgary today. Hi, Rachel.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good.
Well, that's good. Beats the alternative. Okay.
Yeah, I immigrated from Malaysia in 2006 as a university student.
Okay.
So I came in on a student visa.
Right.
With the intention of becoming a citizen of this country eventually.
Yes.
So I would say my route is like a very typical, pursuing a better life, kind of situation.
The Canadian immigrant story, right?
Yeah, exactly. The success story in a way. So I would consider myself a success because
that's good.
I got my degree, I got a job up north, and I was working for the oil and gas sector.
Okay.
And I applied for my permanent residency through the company and the Alberta sponsorship program.
Okay.
So I think it was like the nominee program.
Like the provincial nominee program.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think I got that in maybe 2012, I want to say. So it's like, it was like 6 years of being on a student visa, work permit, and I got my PR. And like after 2 years, I applied for my citizenship, and I became a Canadian citizen in 2019.
Okay.
And it's just like everything was like work hard. I put in the effort. I spent the money. My parents paid for, they basically put the savings in me, and I was able to, create a successful life for myself.
Right. And you would have been paying international tuition fees, which would have been much more expensive, I suspect.
Oh, yes.
Right? Yeah.
It was like 3 times more.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you hear Mr. Trudeau today is cutting down on permanent residency spaces quite dramatically. Some people say he's doing it just for political purposes because the polls aren't good for him, and immigration's such a big topic right now. Right? Canadians are less supportive of immigration than they used to be. What do you think about that?
Well, I do agree with cutting down the amount of people coming. Yeah, I do actually.
Okay.
So throughout, I want to say, I guess last year or 2 years ago, I was helping a family that they were refugees from Afghanistan.
Oh, okay. All right.
And they came in as permanent residents. So they, I don't want to say it's like an easy way to come in because obviously they're flooding the country and all that stuff. But They came in as PR. They have basically the ability to work anywhere because of their status.
Right.
Yet there was a lot of government support, with, I think they get, some kind of EI payment per month, depending on the number of people in your family.
Transitional funding kind of thing.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's like for a year, which is like quite a significant amount of money, plus subsidized housing, subsidized, I think it's like free dental care as well.
Okay.
Subsidized internet, subsidized electricity, everything was subsidized, essentially.
Right.
Which,
that's very interesting because I remember many years ago I did a show when the Syrian refugees were coming. You remember the Trudeau government had a plan. We're going to settle 25,000 Syrian refugees. I remember doing a call-in radio show. We're talking about immigration, and I took a call from a nice woman from the Philippines, and she was quite upset because all the Syrian refugees who came to Canada under that resettlement program received permanent residency the day they arrived. Yeah. And she didn't think that was fair.
I actually do agree with her.
You agree?
At the same time I was helping this family, I was also helping another Filipino lady who was working here as a nanny, and she has been here on a closed work permit for 2 years, and she was actually financially abused under that program. Because the employers was, there's the whole story.
Like, what are you going to do, right? Yeah. She was exploited, right? Okay, fair enough.
She was exploited, and then she eventually got an open work permit through the Vulnerable program.
Okay.
And from that, she was able to work in, other jobs, right?
Right.
So this person has been working for 2-3 years, paying taxes, and then not getting any form of government support, continued to pay taxes, and only able to receive her PR after 4 years.
4 years, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you think there's some, there's some inequities in the system then?
Absolutely.
Right.
It's like this person has been paying taxes all these years, yet her PR application took so long. Versus, like people who come in as refugees, they get all this support, and they still get support after whatever the transitional funding ends because they're taking English classes.
Okay. But in the end, look, we have to wrap this up. We're a little tight on time today. I'm so interested in these stories. I've been accused of listening too long today. So in the end, though, you think cutting back on the number of immigrants to the country, it's the right thing to do?
I think we should be more selective.
More selective. Okay, very interesting. All right, Rachel, thank you. I'm glad it all worked out for you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, we'll be right back. I think we're going to have time probably for one more call. TJ in Calgary will take your call coming up next. Just hang on the line. It's been very busy today on this topic. 1-833-668-2577. Talk back on News Radio.
I'm Michelle. Traffic Center. Heavy delays continue for eastbound Glenmore and southbound Crowchild. Just at the end of the merge, we've got a collision. This is blocking the right-hand lane of eastbound Glenmore, the through lane. Thank you, Vicky, for the update on that one. But again, it is very slow through this stretch. Northbound Deerfoot Trail at 17th Avenue, the right-hand lane is blocked, but volume is eased off nicely. And then northbound Deerfoot Trail at Airport Trail, we've got a collision, but this is off to the right-hand shoulder. Southbound Deerfoot at Memorial Drive, you are moving well again. That earlier collision has been cleared out, but if you do spot any other problems, pass it on at 403-291-0066.
It's mainly sunny today with a high of 11 degrees and a low of -4. The reason we get to that high, westerly gusts up to 50 kilometers per hour at points this afternoon. Lots of sunshine expected for Friday. We'll have cloud building up in the afternoon and evening, and that cloud will actually trap some heat near the surface. So we'll get to a high of 7, the low just 0 degrees. Then on Saturday, lots of sunshine expected, and our high hits 16.
Hey there. It's your friends from Toyota. We see you eyeing that Tundra, already picturing yourself hauling so much firewood that your chainsaw's hiding behind the shed. It's time to stop dreaming about that new Toyota and start driving one. Lease a 2024 Tundra 4x4 Double Cab SR5 from $146 weekly for 64 months at 4.39% with $6,299 down. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Prairie Toyota dealer today.
Meet Sarah, work from home mom and AMA member.
Working from home, I don't drive to the office much anymore.
That's why Sarah has AMA MyPace. It's pay-as-you-go insurance for vehicles driven less than 9,000 kilometers a year.
The less my car is driven, the less I pay. The only time I spend on the road is driving the kids around. Buckle up, girls.
Some Albertans are saving 50% with AMA MyPace.
The savings are way bigger than I expected.
Learn more at amamypace.ca.
Experience the new modern Mexicana menu at Mucho Burrito, like pineapple pork al pastor, tender pork, pineapple salsa, and al pastor sauce with a zesty kick. Get it as a taco trio for only $9.95. Or the bold, smoky flavor of our guajillo grilled chicken in a burrito for only $11.75. Get them all in your choice of burrito bowl or taco, and save room for new churro fries, loaded nachos, and taquitos. The new menu at Mucho Burrito. Love what you eat and love Mucho. Prices may vary by location.
Stuck on a waiting list for diagnostic tests like MRIs, CT scans, or EKGs? Visit ScottsdaleMedicalTravel.ca for a free consultation about traveling to Scottsdale, Arizona to get tests done right away at low costs. Prioritize your health without the wait. Visit ScottsdaleMedicalTravel.ca.
Every skin has a story. Show yours the expert care it deserves with Dermapure. Medical aesthetic solutions tailored to you. Find a clinic near you and book a free consultation at dermapure.com.
Meet Seeker, the free new app that lets you stream your favorite radio stations, podcasts, news, sports, and more. And it's the place to win the biggest prizes.
My name is Taylor, and welcome to the Eras Tour.
Win a pair of sold-out tickets to see Taylor Swift live in Vancouver, thanks to Rogers, the presenting sponsor of Taylor Swift The Eras Tour. Download Seeker, the free app from the App Store or Google Play, and see Taylor Swift live.
SEEKR. Seeker.
Weather for Sportsnet. There's nothing like October baseball. Stream every MLB postseason game on Sportsnet Plus. Subscribe at sportsnetplus.ca.
CFFR AM.
A Rogers radio station.
660 News Radio Calgary. To know.
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So, I mean, it is pretty big news from the Trudeau government today on the immigration front. It had a target of 500,000 permanent residents for next year, would have been an all-time high, and it's not going to be that. It's going to be reduced by 24% over 3 years, eventually getting down by 2027, 365,000. The target for this year, 2024, was 485,000, and it was supposed to be 500,000 next year and then 500,000 the following year. And that's not the case anymore. 365,000 will eventually be the number 3 years from now. Just by way of comparison, during Stephen Harper's last year as prime minister, the target for permanent residents was 300,000 for that year. And I remember people giving Harper holy heck. They thought that number was too big. TJ in Calgary. TJ, hi there.
Hey, Rob, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for calling, sir.
Thanks. I'll just give you a quick, I know you're short on time, a quick synopsis of what I went through.
Yeah.
I'm born and raised a Calgary Canadian. Had a brief stint in the U.S. where I went to school and worked. Met my wife there. She's actually a Filipino national. Anyway, we met during COVID, ended up dating for a while, and then got married. But both of our U.S. visas were expiring, couldn't renew them because of COVID. So I obviously came back to Canada. She went back to the Philippines. So
right.
She couldn't get into Canada during that time because of obvious reasons. We applied for a visitor pass, but she was denied. And in fact, she was denied 6 months after we even planned the visit. But I usually don't call on these, but I was struck a little bit of a chord when I heard your guy from Argentina call, because that annoyed me a little bit that someone just shows up and expects to get in and then calls about it. I know, glad that he's in, whatever.
Right.
But for me, it took, I went through the right channels, took, 2.5 years to get my wife into the country.
2.5 years.
And,
wow.
I spent $6,500 to do so, and she just got her PR now. And, I'm not against immigration. I'm not an expert at all in this situation, and so I don't have much to say on that front, but just for me, I was a little bit annoyed how I was it took me as a Canadian citizen. Maybe I'm being spoiled this way, being grown up in Canada, and I think there should be maybe a different route for, Canadian citizens who have, say, a spouse that they're trying to, get into the country, or a family. Then maybe there should be a different avenue to go, in the immigration, go through
like a different stream, or something.
Yeah, perhaps.
I don't know. We got a lot of streams right now. That's the only thing.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Maybe it confuses things, but it just annoyed me that there are people that are coming in on student visas, and not to say it's wrong, but that can get in right away and then obviously get their PR, and what the lady who immigrated from Malaysia said. She went through the right channels and she did the right thing, but then obviously, people from other places in the world get PRs right away, and it just kind of annoyed me a little bit. And again, I don't have dental, and my wife doesn't have dental, so I pay out of pocket, right? And so there's things like that kind of annoy me. But to answer your question, I think I think it's okay to start capping a little bit immigration. I think immigration is important to the economy of Canada, but I think the same thing needs to be maybe screened a little bit better. Obviously.
Right. And maybe some of those inequities need to be straightened out as well, right?
Yeah, obviously it'd be nice. I know it's challenging. So, but I know you got to go. Thanks for the.
Thank you, TJ. Thanks for waiting. Thanks for calling. Thank you for all your calls today. Very informative, very insightful, and we'll be back tomorrow with the Friday Free for All Talkback Hour, which is always a lot of fun. It's open line, open topic on Fridays. We follow your lead. Very busy news day today with immigration and other stories. We'll bring you right up to date at the top of the hour. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio